Check, check, check. All right. All right, we're in. I'm super nervous right now. I'm excited. I'm not nervous. I would say I'm excited. We're about to have ZaideGod on the show. I just sent him the information to join the old Zoom podcast here, and I'm just so excited to get a chance to talk to him. He is the leader of the guild The Faceless on the Mischief TLP for EverQuest. Yeah, and I've been a member and I've been participating and doing raids with him and everybody else for the last month or so. And so I wanted to have him on. I just wanted to pick his brain about what it's like to run a guild full of like hundreds of people and coordination and having officers. And it's like it's a whole thing. And yeah, and I'm also gonna, because I know there's some of y'all that are listening that don't know what I'm talking about at all. And so I want to ask him to describe, well, maybe we both will do it, but we're playing a game called EverQuest. And this is a game that came out in 1999. And to my happy enjoyment, I found out a few months ago that it's still active and there's tons of people playing. And it is my favorite game of all time. And yeah, I'm hoping that we can give a little description of what that is. And if it's something that you're interested in trying, you know, it's available, you know, and you know, it's an MMORPG, which is a massive multiplayer online role-playing game. And it basically, you go in and you create a character, and that character is you. And this is what's so fascinating about how EverQuest was designed, because I've played tons of MMOs. I've played Warcraft, I've played Dark Age of Camelot, I played the newer ones, the Final Fantasy 14, Warhammer, and the feeling of being immersed in an alternate reality where your decisions, you actually feel like your decisions matter, where the reality of that game space feels like reality. I've yet to experience a game that has that level of engagement or immersion. I mean, you feel things like anxiety, you feel things like fear of dying or screwing up. You can experience the whole realm of human emotion while you're immersed in this game, playing a warrior, a wizard, a druid, a shaman, a necromancer, and the people that you meet on the game, because it's a social game. Like, you need others to progress in efficient ways. And like, you know, I'm used to, like, if you're playing Call of Duty or if you're playing a game, you know, you find someone who's good and you want to link up with them again because their skills are good, they've got good personality, and you end up, you know, what you say and what you do matters, just like the real world. And it creates this unique experience, which is it's at least my experience has been it's been troubling at times, because I start to really care about my character in this game. And it's somewhat abstract and interesting. But here, yeah, Zaide's popping in right now, and we'll get a good detail of what EverQuest is where I'd like to start. Yo, hey, dude.
Hey, what's going on? Can you hear me?
Yeah, good to hear you. Good to see you.
Awesome. Good to see you too.
Yeah, man, I just went ahead and started recording. I was giving a little background of what EverQuest and MMORPGs are.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so dude, I'm super excited to have this conversation. So I'm O'Doyle in game.
Yep. Hey, well, you know, it's nice to meet you in this format, and thanks for having me here.
Yeah, man, it's my pleasure. It's an honor, for real. Like, your character is you play a few characters, yeah?
Yeah, you know, everyone will know me as Zaid, but I mostly play on a character named Mata right now. So that's Mata, and it's a warrior. But I have my cleric, which is technically my main character, named Zaid.
Right on. Yeah, and what I'd like to start the conversation with, I'd like to ask you, if you could, to describe what EverQuest is. So say someone's never played EverQuest and they've no games, but they don't really understand. How would you describe EverQuest?
Right, like, so they play video games, but they don't know what EQ is.
Yes, and they've
I
played
would I would
both.
say it's kind of like Skyrim, but imagine a couple thousand people were playing in the same game world as you simultaneously and could interact with you and the world at the same time. Um, and if they don't know what MMOs is, that should kind of clue them into all that. And I would talk about how, like, you know you might want, I don't know, an item that you see on like a hill, but everyone else can see the item, and there's only one of the items. So if someone else goes and gets it before you, then they have the item and you don't, and you have to wait until it reappears, which could be a week, or you have to find some alternate way. um, and that in some ways can be difficult, but in other ways it makes you feel like you're really part of a living, breathing world, and that's the magic of EverQuest in a nutshell.
That's spot on. And also, like, if you're building your trade skills in Skyrim, the stuff you make feeds into a real active economy.
Yeah.
And so it is, and that's what I was talking about before you popped on, was just, I guess, the immersion that you experience. It almost is a reality in itself when you're playing the game.
Oh yeah, it grips you. It can be tough to disentangle yourself sometimes from EverQuest. And yeah, it's funny that you brought up the economy, because some people play just for the economic aspect. You know what I mean? It's like a stock market mini game for them, and that's all they do, and it's very fulfilling for those people too. So
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I wanted to just give a quick shout out to anyone who may be in and wanting to know more about EverQuest before we dig into the weeds here about some questions I have about running a guild. Like your experience going through the TLPs. Like, this isn't your first time doing a time lock progression, right?
right, no, no, a lot of times.
Okay, so before we go into the weeds, I want to segue the listeners that may want to know more about EverQuest to
Okay.
another podcast called Forever Quest. If you could just look that up and you start listening, it is so enjoyable. You'll get it. You'll literally feel the immersion of the experience through Jeff and Sean, because they're playing through the game on this podcast and sharing their experience while they do it. So if you're interested in EverQuest, want to know more, that's the place to go to. Forever Quest, anywhere you find podcasts. Okay,
Awesome
so
podcast.
yeah, you've been a guest 3 times. That's how
Yeah.
that's honestly, that's how this conversation happened, was because I was listening to them and I heard you tell your story and share about the lore and your experience. And that's how I ended up in your guild.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm super fortunate, and that they've let me be on their show, and given me an opportunity to kind of interact with their listeners and stuff. It turned me into a listener as well. I'm a big fan now. But that's all part of the magic of the community of EverQuest, because we're forced to interact with each other, to exist, to coexist in the world. You have heroes and villains in the community. We get to meet awesome people like that and develop these really great communities, and it brings people together like you and I, who otherwise never would have met. So
Totally.
we forge these awesome relationships.
Yeah. And then you get to go adventuring and take down high level targets, creatures, mobs, dragons. It's like,
Yep.
it's cool for me because it's a cool way to have friends, right? Like,
Yeah.
man, I've been going years just trying to connect with people, and like, how do I make friends? I'm an adult, I'm 34. Like, what's life anymore?
Yeah,
And then
it's
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 like,
tough now. You get older, you have kids and a wife, and it's like it's hard to step outside of that home sphere. It's not like high school or college anymore. You know what I mean? Where you can just walk up to someone and easily make friends.
yeah, how's that been like for you? Are you able to are you I don't want to ask that question. I was going to ask if it's easy for you to balance or to like compartmentalize your experience. Like, when you're as Zaid in game, you got to be a leader, and you're playing a different game, which is what's fascinating to me. Like, the depth of the game that you're playing is a game of social and leader like group oriented leadership.
Yeah, it's very political. It is. I would say, actually, I don't even try to separate it. You know what I mean? Like, there's no deviation between the game and real life for me, which sounds kind of crazy out loud, but like, um, one of the pretty much the main reason I still play EQ after all these years is the friendship. Like, I really play so I can meet people and make friends who share this passion with me. and the social element of the leadership and the politics that goes into maintaining relations between our guild and other guilds, which most people don't see unless you're a guild leader or an officer. And then the interplay of all the members. You know, we've had so many faceless guilds, and we've got people who have been playing with us for over a decade, and they don't all get along, and you have to like balance it all, and it's really intricate, and I have a lot of fun with it. And it used to be, you know, because I started the guild as a kid, basically, this was a world where I could be respected as an adult, and no one would see that I was a child, you know what I mean? And so I got to cut my teeth on what leadership was and what um, interacting with someone as an equal is. Now I find myself in a different position in life, you know what I mean? And I'm a leader in the military. I'm a senior member of the military now. So I find that interacting with challenging people in EverQuest helps me interact with challenging sailors in the Navy, but also a lot of the leadership techniques I learned in the Navy about how to build resilience and how to be tough and how to not be an emotional leader help me be a better guild leader and a better person to interact with in the guilds. It lets me care for my friends in the guild in a more genuine way while still putting the goals of the guild at the forefront.
I've noticed the same thing in my experience, because EverQuest is such a social game, and we need each other in the game to succeed.
Yeah.
It's improved the state of my waking experience in the real world, because I've noticed I'm engaging with people in a friendly way, the way I would when someone runs across the East Common tunnels and I say, oh, well, that's a cool sword you got. Like,
Yeah.
I'm more likely to say like, whoa, dude, like, good to see you. Like, I don't know, just interact normally. But I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned you started as a kid, and I remember this from that
Yeah,
Forever Quest.
it's funny because like, yeah.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. Well, you mentioned just like saying, hey, like nice sword to someone in the common lands. And it's funny, like I kind of do the same thing. Whenever I see someone with a cool character name, I try to like hit them up and be like, hey, that's an awesome name. I like that. Or if it's like from a TV show that I recognize, or like some random like niche nerd area, I like to compliment people on that kind of stuff. Or if I see someone do like a good play, which is sometimes kind of rare in EverQuest, because I guess you get desensitized after 20 years of what like a good playing looks like. You know what I mean? I like
Right.
to call them out and say it. And I do the same thing. I try to do the same thing in real life. Like I have this opinion that you don't need a reason to compliment somebody. And most people in life probably do not get complimented as much as they deserve. So when I see anything that I can like pick up on to just kind of try to spread a little positivity, I try to do that.
Dude, it's so helpful. It really is. And yeah, I'd like to start with, well, I've got so many questions going through my head. Like, I want to ask you about that experience when you were in East Common Lands, when you were like 8 years old, and you were just like /OOC/shout, I'm going to start the best guild.
Yeah.
Like, that was so cool when I heard that. And I wanted to just kind of hear, could you tell our listeners kind of what happened there?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, like, I was just kind of like a young, petulant child, pretty much. But I had like big goals and big dreams, and I didn't know what it would take to be the best guild. I never knew what that meant. But I was just like, that's going to be me. That's what I want to build. Whatever it is, I want it to be the best. And I started on that journey. And if I had known, even as an older teenager, when I really made Faceless as like a hardcore raiding guild, if I had known what it would take, I probably would have been like, you know what, that's okay. I'll just play a little bit in my corner, and then I'll quit when I get bored. Because it's intense. It's not as intense these days as it used to be before the agents of change that let us do instance raids. But it is an unreal level of dedication from the membership and the leadership and everything. But yeah, I mean, it was just an awe, like being in awe of like top players and big personalities in the community and wanting to be like them. Like when I was growing up, I read comics like normal kids, but also like FOH forums and the Legacy of Steel website. Those were like also comic book characters to me. You know what I mean? Like watching Tiggle and his posts on Legacy of Steel, because I played on Nameless. That was like the same as like reading the weekly Spider-Man. You know what I mean? Or the monthly Spider-Man comic to me. So that's what I wanted to be. And I don't know that I was ever successful in becoming that or building that kind of guild. like they had back in the old days. But yeah, I just kind of like inch by inch, I was like, hey, I came up with the goal, and I was too stubborn to ever back down from the goal as the goal became more and more challenging to achieve. And I would say that at this point, I achieved my goal of making a really great guild at various points, server top guilds. And I think on Mischief will end up being the long-term top guild as well. I think it'll prove itself to be that. I would say that Faceless is probably overall the most successful time lock progression server guild of all time. Some people would debate me very passionately about that, but I would say that in my very biased opinion, we are. We've been on so many servers and we've been successful so many times. We've made it to the end of multiple TLP servers, which is a claim that I don't think any other guild can make. So
Yeah, and it's been super fascinating being in the organism now, after listening on the outside through the podcasts through EverQuest, and now being in it. And I was curious to know how many of the guys that we're playing with right now have been with you this run through these TLPs over these years. Like,
it's hard to put an exact number at any given time because they come and they go. Right now, I'd say maybe like 10 people here have 10 or 15 people in the guild right now that are actively raiding with us have been raiding with Faceless for like 5 or 6 years.
right on.
Um, only like one or two people. No, I would say there's like 10 people I keep in contact with from the original Faceless, which is now over 10 years old. Most of them have moved on in their lives. They don't raid on TLP anymore and that kind of thing. But there's a lot of people from like the second and third iterations of Faceless that are still with us.
So when you see this expansion coming out, Planes of Power next week, it's gonna change the game for everyone that's playing right now. It's gonna open up new zones, new progression points, new raids, new items, new level caps. Everything's gonna change. And when you see this unfolding, this isn't the first time you've experienced a transition into Planes of Power.
Yeah.
How is this time on Mischief different or the same than how it's been on other time lock progressions for you in the guild?
That's a good question. I think, well, the randomization and all the actual Mischief rule set definitely adds an element to it that makes it fresh. You don't know what's going to happen. Like the mini bosses in like Bastion of Thunder, for all I know, could drop Plane of Time back flags. You know what I mean? Something really crazy could happen. So you have to be a little bit more flexible and on your toes. Another thing that's different is just like where I'm at in life. Faceless isn't as hardcore. Like, I've been talking to my officers about it. And originally I was like, okay, like Planes of Power is coming out. We're going to start raiding at 5 p.m. when the server launches or when the expansion launches, and we'll stop when Quorum dies. And we expected that would take like 48, 56 hours of straight playing. And then we've slowly dialed it back to a more casual, manageable goal where we'll have some sleep breaks and stuff like that for people. And that was mostly because I wanted to make the decision to be more inclusive. We have people who can't do that. And if they can't stay on for that whole period of time, they'll fall behind in flagging. It'll be really difficult to get them back in. And I've done Planes of Power. I've done all these expansions in early EQ enough times that I don't feel like I have to prove anything to myself. I'm not going to get any great fulfillment from it. But what I want is to have the guild get to the end of the content quickly without feeling like we had to leave people behind to do it.
That's what I was really interested in, is where the fulfillment's coming from now. Since you've proven and you've been able to basically beat out the content in an efficient and quick way through all these servers over the years. And now we're in this fun zone where literally stuff is so easy to get and everybody has a chance to get and play and experience all the content.
Yeah.
Where do you find like what's driving you? It seems to be like you're shifting more towards like, how do we create a more inclusive experience for anyone involved in this?
I do want to do that. A lot of my drive comes from like, normally on a TLP, I'll take breaks or I'll run the guild during the early eras when it's very contested and we don't know how it's going to be. And then once the guild is super solid and we know the guild is like going to be the top guild on the server forever, then I'm comfortable passing off leadership to one of the officers and I kind of go back and do something else in life. And then I'll, come around on the next TLP and then we'll have another Faceless. But for this one, like my goal here is to just stick it out as long as I possibly can. I know there's like a lot of people who expected me to quit the server by now. Like I would get bored and just drop it. So I know a lot of people are surprised by that, and I want to continue to surprise those people. So my goal with Cello, Faceless made it all the way from launch to retail to live EQ. It was the second guild to ever do it in EQ's history on TLPs. Only one guild has done it before us.
Did you say with sale?
Cello, sorry, Cello.
The server Cello?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a time lock progression server that came out, I want to say, in 2019.
Okay.
So we did that. We made it all the way to live, which was a huge goal. But a lot of that I was not there for. At the time, I was overseas with the Navy, so my playtime was like sporadic. And eventually, I just got bored with the content, even when I got back to the United States, and I just never jumped back in. But my goal with this is to take it all the way to live, not just so Faceless can do it, but so that I could say I went the distance with Faceless.
Right. And is there any part of these besides Terror of Luckland or are the expansions that you haven't experienced the content or the lore from?
Yeah. The expansion right after Prophecy of Ro, I have never done. The first like level 70 expansion or 75 expansion, I've always skipped it. And then I haven't done anything after House of Thule on like the live progression. So House of Thule is the expansion that was out when I first started doing TLP servers. And since all that time has passed, I've never gone back to live and done it. And anytime one of my guilds has gotten up to House of Thule, which we did on our test server progression guild, we either stopped the guild and went somewhere else, or I was no longer playing on the server.
Right. Okay. So yeah, that's where I'm at, man, is like I'm seeing this everything's new to me. I never got to raid at all when I played EverQuest. It was, I got lucky if I could get on my friend's computer for 30 minutes to an hour at a time. And then I get my own computer, and I was just so amazed with how the world was and how everything I needed to ask questions for people, and I needed help from people. And it really felt like when I played that game, I used to think like if heaven was real, it would be EverQuest. Like that's where I would be all the time.
Yeah.
But I was so young, I never really, I saw all the awesome players running around, and it was so unobtainable to me. I didn't think it was even possible to get, because I just didn't even know what the game had. And so now that I'm playing on this Mischief server with you and everyone in Faceless, I'm seeing stuff that I only dreamed of or read about on Alakazam and everything.
Yeah.
And that's the draw for me, is like continuing to move through, and I want to experience all the content, just because, like you, man, I just love the world. I love the lore behind why all the stuff's there and why we have to figure a lot of it out.
Yeah, it is really, really awesome. The thing that is intimidating about the process is that, like, we've only been on the server for 7 months, and it feels like we've already done so much, but it's going to take 5.5 years for the server to reach live. So it's like, this is such a tiny speck. You know what I mean? If we're running a marathon, we're in like the first 4 miles right now. Like, you didn't even get started. So dude, this is all just a warm up.
It's wild, because when I first came in like a month and a half ago, I mean, I was obsessed, dude. I needed to get to 60. Never been to 60 in my entire life. And it was like, I was on Grind Time USA, dude. And I was just, the last level was like 4 or 5 hours of Chardock. That's all I did. And it was like, I was like, I don't know if I could do that again, because it was so tough. But it's tapered out now. It's really cool, because it's like we have this raid schedule, and like the only thing I really want to do now is just raids.
Yeah.
And so we have 3 nights a week, 2 to 3 hours a night, depending on the content.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yep.
And then I can get AAs
you just got to find that sweet spot, you know what I mean, where you're able to play enough that you're happy with it, and you don't have to sacrifice things in real life. And I feel like we have reached that point.
That's what's really cool, especially on the Mischief server. You don't have to feel like you're missing out.
Yep.
Right on. So how's it for you? I wanted to ask some kind of guild specific questions.
Okay.
Like, what happens in our guild with with officers? Do you guys have meeting schedules the way that any startup or like a team would have, or coaches would have, or just kind of like logistics of running a guild?
Right. I don't really call formal meetings at this stage because we're like past that. We have meshed enough as a group, and we have enough chemistry with the current officer team, that like before raids, we tend to be just in voice together and officer voice going over like the plan for the night, the plan for the next couple days, or we'll talk about expansion stuff. And then Discord, in the officer area of Discord, which people can't see, I have like expansion planning discussion. And we started planning for Luckland like day 5 of Velius, you know what I mean? And we're just posting, working on spreadsheets and coming up with our plan. So it's just like a constant dialogue that happens, and we sync up before and immediately after most raids for a little bit. Um, there was a time when all the officers were not friends. You know what I mean? When we had an officer team where there was a lot of enmity between folks, and I had to slowly clean out. Clean out is the wrong word, but I had to slowly, move people out of the officer team or other people into the officer team, because the work that officers do is it's a lot of work, but it's not highly technical work, right? Many people can do it, and so it's more important to find the right team that meshes together and has a chemistry to go the distance, rather than have like someone who is a super genius and can do an amazing job with spreadsheets or can plan extremely well. I'd rather have someone who's like an 8 out of 10 on performance, but gets along with the team and we all like them, rather than someone who's a 10 out of 10 but it's hard to work with. And we're at that spot now where we all get along really great.
Absolutely. How many? So I've noticed that when we go on raids, there's Jadawin leads raids. Like, so I hear his voice.
Yep.
And I know Hops I get items from.
Yep.
Yeah. How could you kind of like how many officers do we have and what are their roles?
Right. So we have a good number right now, and most of them toil thanklessly in the background. So you have me. I don't do anything. I just delegate things. Jadwin, aka Sval, and Drexen are our 2 primary raid leaders. So they're there to lead split raids and stuff like that.
And
right now, Drexen, you go ahead.
So and what that means is they need to it's their task to know what we're doing and how to do it on these raid encounters, right?
Yep, and they're conducting. They're the conductor up in front of the orchestra.
Right. Okay, so I was just interrupting just to make sure, like I wanted to just understand the role.
So we had those 2. Drexen has to step out for a while to handle some real life stuff, but he's still on the team. But in the meantime, I'm leading those raids, which is kind of my role, is to just kind of fill in whenever there needs to be someone in the gap. I'm that guy.
Right.
We have Antisocial, who runs our recruitment. Very aptly named, I suppose.
Right. I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, and he does an awesome job. So he's out there meeting folks. He manages like our Discord presence outside of our Discord, and our forum presence outside of the Discord. And then whenever someone wants to join, an application comes in. He gets an alert in Discord for the application. He talks to them. He shows them the ropes, like, hey, when you get in the guild, you're going to have the DKP site. These items are expected to be on your character at all times. Like, you need to do this and this and this. And he kind of is a new member's sponsor into the guild. He's the person that they'll go to if they need help. So he does a tremendous amount of work, and he's the person who most closely knows all the members.
Wow.
Then we have the DKP team, which is Hops, Medevac, and used to be daily, but it's now parsecs. He main changed from a necromancer to a warrior. But right. Hops, daily, and parsecs, Hops, Medevac, and parsecs are our DKP team. Normally you would have like 1 DKP officer in a guild, but we need 3 or even 4 sometimes, because the amount of loot you get on Mischief is just insanity. You know what I mean? So we have 3 right now. I would like to one day get 4, just so we can keep them all employed with that without burning them out. Right, and they all do a wonderful job of that. Last but not least is Greywalk, who I recently promoted. And basically what Greywalk does is he helps me with back-end stuff, spreadsheets, but also his full-time job is to manage the raid tool. Because I don't know if you've ever used the raid window. It is a beast. It's not intuitive or anything. So if we have the raid leader bogged down with the raid tool, they usually can't effectively lead the raid. So like normally Greywalk and I will just manage the raid tool full time. That way our raid leaders are free to run the raids and execute things competently.
So when,
And that's the
so
officer team right now.
dude, that's awesome. I'm really glad to get to hear all that and know all that. So are you guys on your own officer chat while we're doing our thing over here? Like you guys are kind of coordinating off to the side?
Usually before raids, you'll notice a lot of people sit in the raid voice and they're hanging out and stuff. And we have the raid bot, which pushes out a list of people. So we're all in officer voice at that time coordinating, and we have like a draft, you know what I mean? The raid bot puts out group compositions, people form those groups, and then usually me and Jadwin will sit there and I'll be like, I'll take group 1. He's like, I'll take group 6, and we go back and forth. And then
Oh, so you guys
we'll
are
invite
like,
those.
wait, are you guys picking it like we're playing pickup basketball or something?
Exactly like that. Yeah, I'm like, okay, I see this group has like our 2 tanks and 2 clerics. I need those guys. Boom, boom, boom. We bounce
And
back
you're
and
also
forth.
like,
So
you want the higher skilled players, right? Because you guys are kind of racing to compete the content.
right. Yeah, I'm kind of ruthless with that. I'll like be like, no, that's mine, that's mine, that's mine. And the last thing we do before we jump up there is we sort our raids by class. And then we just do one final sanity check and say, okay, like I'll say bards, he says 3, I say 3. I say clerics, he says 4, I say 6. And then we say, okay, I'll give you one of my clerics, so we both have 5 and 5, that kind of thing.
Right.
And
Okay,
we
cool.
try to make it even, but I will lie and be like, yeah, I've got 8 monks, but I actually have 12 monks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I watched that monk video that you posted up, the 12, the YouTube video of 12 monks fighting Lord
Oh
Bob.
yeah, Lord Bob. Yeah, that was a fun video to watch. EQ Fight Club, they do a lot of cool stuff with that.
Yeah, definitely. I watched a few of the videos. They're fun. They'll just set up. That's what's so interesting is the mechanics of this game, the depth at which they go. It's so cool that like you actually don't know what's going to occur in any of these situations.
Yeah.
Like the math underneath the code base that is this game. I mean, it's like you got it. Some people know how. I mean, it's just tough to figure out how everything works.
Yeah. And it's always changing. Every single like if you take a cycle off, because TLP servers come out basically every year. If you take a year off and you don't do one, the next time you come to one, you tend to be behind because there's new tech every single server that people discover still, because they're
Wow.
constantly patching things. A lot of the stuff you see in game is a product of us and like a few other top guilds discovering something, abusing the exploit, and then devs finally being like, okay, we need to shut that down. Like you notice we're always like really big in VT. We're like, hey, don't let that mob get near the wall, because if it hits the wall, it's going to go back to 100% health. It's going to death touch somebody.
Yeah.
Well, 3 servers ago, we were just pulling every one of those bosses right to the zone line. No one ever moved in Vexthal except for the monks and Shadow Knights. Like Aten Hara, we pulled her right to the entrance, boom, and killed her.
So the devs had to make some adjustments.
Yeah, because there's we found basically geometry exploits, right? There was an area where it still exists, but you can't pull mobs out of the rooms anymore. But you could take a horse, shrink yourself all the way down, and run as fast as you can, and you could jump through what is supposed to be an invisible wall in the wall of the zone, and then you run around, you get on top, and there's all these different routes you can go in Vexthal that appear to be invisible, but you can run on, like when you're in a video game, they have those invisible walls to stop you from progressing. Since you're outside the geometry a little bit, you can run on those. And like if you're a Shadow Knight, you could just like target Aten Hara, send your pet in, run back to the raid, and she'll just show up, boom, solo.
Wow. And you
Yeah.
guys figured that out?
I certainly did not figure it out, but it comes like through the grapevine. You know what I mean? Someone will figure out something, and then each guild develops it further and further and further.
Yeah, it reminds me of the speed running community of just people that break games to complete them as quickly as possible. They
It's
discover.
exactly like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like so in 2012, I was on test server with my guild, Faceless Order on test server, and we were messing around with Emp, and I spent like 3 days in Emp's room on my monk with a mage down at the entrance, and we were just trying to find ways to bypass the Emp key. We tried coughing people in. We were standing the mage everywhere in the room we could to try to cough people into the room without a key. Never worked. And we found out that occasionally you could, sometimes when you use Call of the Hero, it doesn't drop your aggro. So like if you did it like 10 times, you could occasionally cough yourself down, and Emp would just come right down to the zone line. You're like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then later on, other guilds figured out that you could stand in one spot in the first floor. You could send someone up there, get aggro. heal that person, and then they feign death up top, and they'll just run right down. You don't even have to do the call of the hero.
Oh,
So on Agnar, which was now 4 servers ago, uh, we walked into Straw Temple. We did 2 emp keys, ran our guys up there, healed, pulled emp down, and killed him right at the zone line in like 20 minutes.
did
So
they?
that was fixed.
Yeah, that was fixed because now we all have to stand by everyone has to be keyed.
Yeah, if you pull emp out now, he will death touch you as soon as he sees you.
So I was grouping with some guys in the guild the other day, and they said that at times the devs will ask you to meet with them, right?
Me personally,
Yeah.
I have had the pleasure of meeting with a few of them, but yeah, I mean, I've gotten to chat with some of them. Yeah.
Right on. Yeah. I feel like if I was a developer, having close contact with the people that were learning how to break the game would be highly
Right.
beneficial.
Sometimes, like when I used to stream a lot more often, every now and then a few of them would be in my stream, in my Twitch chat. And I'd be like, oh, if you guys are here, like, let me just show you a bunch of exploits while we're standing here.
Yeah.
I shouldn't do that, right? Because like we build our strategies around those exploits sometimes, but I can't help myself. I'm like, part of me wants to be fast, and part of me wants the game to be fixed. So
Yeah.
I end up choosing the fix it route. Like we used to use taunt. Taunt was a huge part of many of our strategies. You could taunt things through the Z axis, like above you, below you, and taunt used to work so that it didn't generate social aggro. So like if I walked into a room where there was 5 mobs and they were all friends, so if I hit one, they would all jump on me, all 5 of them. But instead, I just taunted one right in the middle, and I walked out, and I never did anything else to him but taunt him. Nobody would assist him. So you could taunt pull anything, anywhere, as long as you didn't get attacked by them because you were also KOS. Um,
Wow.
so if I was KOS, I would just invis myself, run up, taunt him really fast, and run out of range before he would melee hit me, and then I'd be invis and pull a solo. When I was doing my SSF runs, where I played like solo all the time, and if I died, I deleted my character, I used taunt pulling constantly, and
Right.
that got nerfed after I showed it to the devs.
But it was worth it though, just to kind of share what you're learning with someone, like let them know.
Yeah,
And it's just fun. It's fun to see what's happening. That's
yeah,
I know you, I want to ask you a couple more questions. I want to, before we close out, I want to know, I want the plan for Planes of Power. Like what's our approach? Kind of, if you could lay it out for us, because I noticed over the last week, we got a bunch of new members in the guild. You know, I
yep.
had the pleasure of grouping with Elementa, who just seems like an awesome dude. Like what's our plan of approach here?
I mean, I'll just pull it up and actually read you roughly what we'll be doing, which is crazy. Normally we keep these things really, really secret, but I don't really mind.
Which is the second
The
part of
open
my
world.
question, by the way. I also want to ask you about Greed is Good.
Okay, yeah. Do you want to ask that right now, or you want to wait till after this?
Let's do this and then
Okay.
talk about that.
So Pop's gonna launch. We're gonna let people go do their justice trial. They need to do 1 justice trial. Then we'll do probably our storms keys. We'll go to Plane of Storms, pop a DZ for each group, and get our medallions and other items so that we could do Bastion of Thunder. Then we will take those groups as they finish, form them into groups of 3 groups, and
Well,
do
hold
hedge
on.
mazes.
Is this all over a period of 24 to 72 hours we're talking about?
Right now, we're talking about a period of like 1 to 3 hours so far.
Really? Okay. So this is for the hardcore heads in the guild right now who are going to be there, ready to run, ready to roll day 1.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, we got it like my officers are going to hate me for publishing exact numbers, but we have like over 100 people who are signed up to like roll immediately out of the gate and go hard.
Yes, dude.
Yeah, so these people, then they'll do the hedge maze, which is an instance that maxes out at 18 people. So every time 3 groups finish, we'll form them up and they'll run through the hedge maze. Once everyone is done, then we'll start our actual like raid content. We'll do Crypt of Decay. So that's going to be like a Plane of Disease, which is Grummus, then Carpent Cycle, and then Burtox. We'll do all that. We're going to have to do some flagging cheese for that. So that'll be something maybe it'll get fixed because I just talked about it here, but we're going to do some exploits to get everyone flagged. Then we're going to do Plane of Innovation, which is going to give us access.
So now we're at Plane of Innovation. How many hours into launch do you think this is?
It's really tough for me to guess here. I would say like it's safe to assume that every step I mentioned, just call it 1 hour.
Okay.
1 hour to 90 minutes per step.
Okay.
And then you might have like 15 minutes between each step as people kind of gather their bearings and say, okay, what are we doing next? So by the time we start rating, we're like 3 or 4 hours in. Then
Okay.
we hit Grumus, Carpin, and
I'm
Burtox.
sorry.
That's gonna
I'm sorry. I got one more question. We're
okay.
not even level 65 yet at this point, right?
No, probably 61, maybe 62 because of the group content you had to do originally.
Okay.
So yeah, most of this will be 61, 62 when we do it. We do all the stuff up to Burtoxilus. That'll probably take 2 hours because Burtox is like a mandatory timed event. So we just have to eat the 2 hours on that. So now we're 5 to 6 hours in. We have Planet Innovation. We'll run that. That'll be Xanametic Behemoth. That'll give us access to Planet Tactics. Then we will do Terrace Thule. We'll do Saren. That's another thing where we need a key. I'm not going to talk about our plans with the Saren key, but that key sucks. After that, we're going to do Arendar, which will let us get into Halls of Honor. We'll do the Halls of Honor trials. Then we'll do Agnar, which is in Bastion of Thunder. Then we'll probably do Ralosek, Talentzek, Valentzek, and then Myth Annual Mar. And after that, we'll take a sleep break. So I'll give everyone at that point time to, hopefully get at least 4 hours of sleep. And the expectation will be that when they reform for raids after our break, they will be 65. So I'm going to give you like 9 hours and you sleep 4 of it and grind to 65 for the rest of it.
Wow.
Then we'll reform. We'll knock out Soul Row, the elemental planes. Maybe we'll stop after 3 of the elemental planes and we'll take another break, and then we'll do Planet Earth and Planet Time, and then that's it. So it's a wrap. Then we all take a nice weekend to recover.
Man, dude. All right, dude. All right. So I got a question for like the casual type folk in the guild, people like me and Albus and all them.
Yeah.
What? So I guess so. I want to experience all the stuff you just described, but I won't be able to do it in that first launch of the expansion. Will I be able to go back on my own with people that are coming up from behind as well to complete this stuff?
Yes. So our plan right now is like every week we have built-in backflag raids so that the people who just couldn't be there for the opening week or had to miss raids will get everyone caught up. But also on top of that, Planet Time, which is really the most important raid, has built-in backflags. Like when you kill certain mobs, it drops like a few backflags that we can give to people. So you'll be able to do Planet Time very rapidly, and then we'll just catch you up on your other flags so you can do other raids as you wish or access other zones.
That's what I'm curious about because I really want to take down all these gods, dude. Like I really want to get all of them.
Yeah, it's a cool experience.
And we'll be able to do that without screwing up our raid targets each week, like with lockouts and stuff.
Absolutely, you will. Yeah, most of them we will not go back and farm regularly, so you'll be able to do it with the backflag raids whenever we can, or you'll be able to do it with side raids just for bonus loot. There are so many raids in Pop, but with us being so geared from Vexthal, most of those raids actually don't produce loot that is an improvement for us. Like everything in the game before the elemental planes, for the most part, is kind of like tuned for people who didn't get to farm Vexthal, because in Era most guilds never saw Vexthal.
That's right.
So with that said, since we've had ample farming of Vexthal, we won't really get many upgrades from that content.
Why do you think that is? What were you there in Era when Luckland came out?
I wasn't a big raider, but the biggest, there's a few reasons why it was like that. And it was like that for every expansion, really. First and foremost, there was no instancing, right? So that meant like every week Emperor spawned, and you need to kill Emperor to get into Vexthal. Every week he spawned, and probably every week your top guild killed him. Because they don't want you to be in Vexthal, because if you're not in Vexthal, they could just have a scheduled Vexthal raid, which is really nice. Otherwise, if there's 2 guilds in Vexthal, now they got a bat phone. Wake up at 2 a.m. to kill Adhan. No one wants to do that.
Do a 3-hour trudge.
Right. Yeah. They will specifically try to keep you out. But on top of that, Sony Online Entertainment back then always released these expansions unfinished. When Velius launched, the Sleeper was not finished. When Luckland launched, Vexthal was not finished. Plane of Shadows didn't even exist and was never even added. When Pop launched, Plane of Time was not done. And so they intentionally set up encounters to be unbelievably difficult so that people couldn't progress to the unfinished zones.
Right.
So the original Emperor, and you've done the Emperor fight with us a bunch of times, right? So you've seen how much goes into that. The original Emperor, on top of all that other shit, also death touched.
Damn.
For just like, every 60 seconds, just gonna zap somebody.
Oh my God.
And back then the players were also weaker. Like even the same, if you took our same guild, same players, characters, items, everything, and transported us back to the original timeline, our skill caps would be lower. We would do less damage. We would have lower health. So it was definitely more challenging on top of all that. Wrath Council was a huge, huge problem for people in Planes of Power. Wrath Council, kind of like Emperor, like there's all these mobs you have to balance at the same time. And it wasn't until there was basically a series of patches that people were able to beat the Wrath Council and gain access to Plane of Time.
There was something.
There was a server,
Oh, go ahead.
the EQ Max server, Alcabor, where they never did the patch to fix the Wrath Council, right? And for like 15 years, there were guilds still farming Planes of Power, and they never killed the Wrath Council.
Wow.
So it was pretty close to mathematically impossible to do in its original form. It took a dev coming to the Max server and as a hobby fixing the Wrath Council for them to be defeated.
What is the thing about the Wrath Council that makes it so difficult?
There's just so many mobs that you have to balance, and they hit so hard, and it just requires like more players than you can really get in there. So like you've got 12, I want to say 12 members of the Wrath Council, and if they die, they respawn quickly unless they all die together. And they hit hard, and you can't mez all of them. Some of them have to be off tanked. So basically you have to get all these mobs down to like 3% and then kill them all at the same time, or else they just respawn.
Wow. But
so you have to have 12. You gotta have 12 tanks. You gotta have enough healers to heal 12 tanks, because they're hitting like real raid mobs. It just becomes like untenable.
Yeah, that's that makes me. Well, that makes me wonder about a bunch of things that but I don't want to ask about the heal chains, like the cleric. I see these clerics doing the heal chains,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, what is this? What does that look like? I don't know. Do you know how that works?
Yeah. I'm always in the CH rots because my main is the cleric. So it actually is super simple. Before I played a cleric, I was really intimidated, and it's the reason I didn't play a cleric. I was like, I can't be in a CH rot. I'll mess it up.
That's what I'm
basically,
thinking.
You just make one hot button, right? And it says your hot button says your number. So I'll say like top line of my hotkey is /RSay 111 space complete heal %T, my target 111. So everyone knows I'm the first person in the CH rot. Then my second line is like pause 35, which is how long we want to wait. And then my next line is cast complete heal. Actually, it's the opposite. It's cast complete heal is my second line. The pause is my next line. And then after my pause finishes, my final line is 2222, you're up next, or something like that, right? And the next guy, number 2, has an audio trigger set for his thing. So when 222 goes out, he hears the audio trigger and presses his button immediately, and then it just keeps going. And we all control it based on that pause timer. So if it's a mob that's easy, we'll put like, hey, pause 40, pause 45. If it's a mob that's really, really hard, we'll do like pause 20. And that dictates how much time we have between casts.
Is that why it's an issue when the tank order gets screwed up, or the mob aggroes someone else that we weren't expecting?
Yeah, if the CH rot is tight like us, we like to split, right? So sure, the guild has 12 clerics, but we might have 3 raids. So if the CH rot is real tight like that, and the mob's suddenly on a different person, I just don't have time to heal them, because like between my complete heal landing, which is a long cast, and then the cooldown, the global cooldown of like 2.5 seconds, then I could cast another spell on a different target. Usually there's a possibility that I'm due to cast another complete heal before my second spell resolves and CH is up again, because of the time frames. So if I heal someone else, the main tank will die.
Right.
So it's just like, hey man, hopefully a shaman or a druid has you, or you use a healing potion, or the tank can get aggro back under control. But if you pull aggro, you might be dead.
Right. And you have to actually change your macro too, right? Once the order gets unestablished.
If the CH chain order gets unestablished, there's a few things I could edit on the fly. We almost never change the numbers on the fly. You know what we do? If someone we've had times where someone goes link dead or crashes in the middle of a rot, and it's like, hey, we got to skip 3 now. You know what I mean? So I'll just manually watch the screen for number 2. He'll say 3 go, and I know 3 is now me as number 4, and I cast.
And you
but
all
you
know,
lose your audio trigger support there.
so you guys know who you're casting on when you see those numbers.
Yeah, we know the tank order, and the tank order changing in fight isn't usually a big deal because I'll just usually my extended target is the tanks.
Right.
And if we have more tanks than my extended target, I'll just have a quick /tar so-and-so. And then I'll start rolling on them. But yeah, if we don't have time to get the CH chain moved over and there's no cushioning, a tank could get rolled before the first CH lands because it's like 10 seconds to cast complete heal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there is a 10-second gap when we start to move the chain over to the next guy, and someone's got to tank it for 10 seconds without a C heal.
Wow. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, now I understand this. So I know you got to go soon. I want to close up. I want to ask the final question is Greed is good. What's going on here? Do we know Greed is good, or were they part of us? What we were running up against them trying to take stuff down. What's the history?
Yeah, it's a tangled web here. So just in the context of Mischief, right? Before Mischief launched, me and a former Faceless member named Krim got together and we planned to make a guild. We were going to do a GDKP guild. We would be joint leaders on it. And me and Krim were friends. We were buddies. We got along really well. So we made the guild. We called it Faceless X in Virtue because he used to lead a guild called In Virtue way back in the day. And I always led Faceless. So we were doing a collab. Boom, Faceless X in Virtue. I recruited all the people. We got the guild going. And we got all the server first. I was the first level 50 on the server when the server came out, and things were smooth, but there was just elements to the guild that I wasn't crazy about. A lot of my friends were not happy with certain things. And I would say GDKP wasn't really my style once I got to use it a little bit, you know what I mean? I felt like there wasn't.
For people that don't know what it is, you pay out in plat, right? And you buy items with plat in raid.
Yeah, you buy items with platinum, and then everyone gets a split. There's some stuff cut off the top, kind of things like that. And so at the time, my playtime was super limited actually anyway, but I didn't like the feel of the guild because when it's profit motive, you know what I mean? I just felt like we weren't getting that community feel. It didn't feel like a team to me. And I wasn't happy with that. And there's other people who weren't happy with it. There was some other stuff going on that I just wasn't crazy about, but I'm not trying to create any drama or delve into it. So I said, hey, I'm going to step out. Krim said, hey, why don't you give it another chance before you back off? And I said, okay, I'll stick around until Kunark comes out and see how I feel. So about 2 weeks into Kunark, just still wasn't feeling it. So I left and I made Faceless, just the Faceless. Then they, that guild had the name Faceless X in Virtue because I was the faceless piece of it, right? They didn't want to walk around with my guild name over their heads when I wasn't in the guild anymore, especially once we started contesting them in open world stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there became some animosity there. So they changed their name to Greed is Good.
They called Gordon Gecko.
Right, yeah. Basically, Krim and I built that guild at launch, and then now the guild is mostly the leadership of that guild is primarily people who Faceless competed against on the Cello server, who were in a guild called Amtrak. It was named Amtrak because of it was a pun about training people.
Right.
Yeah. So that guild Amtrak competed with us on the Cello server. They eventually fell apart and died, and then a lot of their members joined us. And who knows what will happen here. I think Faceless is the safe bet, though.
Man, dude, it's been interesting. It's so cool. I've never got to do one of the bat phones back in the day, or just race somebody for DPS, and it was so exciting. We were in Emperor's. We just ran to open world Emperor, and it was all the Greed is Goods were going. All of us were going.
Yep.
I was like, man, it's popping off, dude. We're throwing our discs in. We're trying to drop everything we got. And this is the cool part too, dude. Is I'm a big fan of Bruce Lee, and Bruce Lee talks about to really know how to live, you got to know how to die, right? And so like taking some losses against him on the races and feeling that, and like, you know, because I'm like you, dude, I kind of have that. The reason I think I'm so into what we're doing is because we are trying to do it the best that we possibly can.
Yeah.
And it's like, even though I may not be able to commit the time when I am on, I want to be playing really hard, and I want to play most efficiently and effectively as I can on whatever character I'm on.
Right.
So yeah, dude, man, I appreciate you coming on the show, dude.
Yeah.
I think it was
Thanks for having me.
excellent. Is there
You know,
anything? Go ahead.
those DPS races and stuff, they're a lot of fun. Sadly, sort of sadly, they're going to stop. You know what I mean? Because open world just kind of ends in EverQuest.
What do
Like
you
I don't
mean?
think we'll do any. Yeah, I don't think we'll do really any open world in Planes of Power, because Planet Time is just all. Planet Time is purely instance. There's no open world version of it, and it is so much better loot than anything else. So we won't really do any open world. In Gates of Discord, we'll do a little bit of open world, but again, from now on, the premier content in every expansion is always going to be purely instance. There won't be an open world version of it.
Really? So what?
Um,
So that doesn't. So there's really nothing. So what's the reason to do it super fast?
to be first.
Just to be first.
Yeah, just for the pride. You know what I mean? Like I think, well, first in any endeavor ever, I think that victory is its own reward. Like I don't need any prize. Being the winner is the prize. But also, you know, just there, I don't think for some people there's real animosity between our two guilds. But actually for me, I like the gig guys. A lot of them are friends with me to some level. And while tempers could flare sometimes, and we try to destroy each other's guilds occasionally through recruitment tactics, maybe, both of those guilds push each other to be better guilds. You know what I mean? And then having them makes Faceless a much better guild, because it pushes us to strive for a greater sense of excellence than we would if there was nobody else out there. You know, you need that mirror. You need someone else to hold up to. But in the end, here's what I think. I think that to be a long-term successful guild, you have to be about one thing and only one thing, and that is people. If you're about anything else, if you're about loot, you will fail. If you're about being the fastest people, long-term, you will fail. If you're about performance over everything, you will fail. If you're about platinum and money or anything else, you will fail. The only thing that you can be about if you want to be successful in the very long term is people. And it's the only thing that matters is the people in the guild.
Man, dude, that's a life motto, dude. That's a life well lived. Man, I think that's excellent. I think that's a good one space to end on, man.
Well, hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, man. I'm looking forward to continuing to experience the game we love, man, the EverQuest.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on. Is there anything you'd like to shout out or direct people for Faceless recruiting? I'm going to put all the info in the show notes, so they'll have access to links and everything.
I just give a shout out to you know, to the whole Faceless guild, the team that we have, and all the Faceless members past and present who have let us, you know, be where we are today. Every single member is important, and everyone is really valuable, and I consider everybody a friend, even if we are mad at each other right now. You know, it all comes back around.
And for anyone listening in Faceless right now, I'm always open to song requests as long as it's Creed's with arms wide open. So you can request any song you want as long as it's Creed. Okay. Look, thanks again, dude. And yeah. I'm gonna stop the recording so we can. Anyway, by the way, here's Creed with arms wide open.